Ladies and gentlemen, life isn't always about the people we choose. Sometimes it's about the people we must endure. Some people walk into our lives like blessings, and others come in as lessons. There comes a point in every soul's journey where silence becomes the loudest answer, where detachment becomes the most profound strength, and where protecting your peace is no longer a choice, but a responsibility. We live in a world that constantly teaches us how to chase success, but rarely teaches us how to guard our spirit. We're told how to climb ladders, but not how to walk away from battles that poison our energy. Today, I want to talk about something every emotionally intelligent, spiritually awake, and truly smart person learns to treat toxic people. Smart people don't waste their brilliance proving their worth. They don't wrestle in the mud with those who throw stones made of insecurity. They rise above. They create invisible shields around their peace. They respond with wisdom, not war. And above all, they know that sometimes walking away is not weakness, it is evolution. Smart people protect their peace like a sacred temple. There is a sanctuary inside every human being. A space so sacred, so divine that no one else has the right to trespass without permission. It is the place where dreams are born, healing begins, and clarity emerges. This sanctuary is your peace. And the smarter you become, the more fiercely you guard it. Because life will test you. People will try to walk into your soul with dirty feet. They'll bring their chaos, their drama, their bitterness, and if you let them, they'll leave behind stains that take years to cleanse. But a wise heart knows not every guest deserves entry. Peace is not a passive feeling. It is not the absence of noise. It is an active practice. It is something you must choose again and again. Smart people don't leave their peace vulnerable to the moods of others. They learn to shut doors, softly, firmly, permanently if needed. They don't wait for others to understand. They don't ask for permission to protect themselves. They draw invisible circles around their joy, their time, their emotional space, and only those who honor that space are allowed in. No exceptions. To the world, they may look quiet, detached, even cold. But within, they are alive, anchored, grounded, and whole. Because when you protect your peace, you protect your power. And when you protect your power, you become unstoppable. Toxic people thrive on reaction. They want to provoke, to stir, to pull you into their storm. But when you choose peace, you don't enter the storm, you become the sky above it. Still, vast, untouchable. Smart people don't try to change others. They don't beg for decency. They don't compromise their boundaries for temporary acceptance. They choose peace over popularity, silence over arguments, distance over dysfunction. This isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the realization that energy is currency, and time, once spent, doesn't return. So they invest it wisely. They don't spend their days explaining themselves to those committed to misunderstanding. They walk away from negativity, not out of fear, but from fierce self-respect. They understand that peace isn't something you find. It's something you create, protect, guard like the rare treasure it is. Even in the loudest moments, they retreat into stillness. Even when surrounded by noise, they hear their own voice above the clamor. Because peace isn't just silence, it's alignment. It's the quiet confidence that you are in control of your own narrative. They set boundaries like prayers, softly spoken, deeply felt. And they don't break them even when others push. They don't defend them because they don't need to. A boundary rooted in self-love never needs an explanation. And sometimes protecting peace means disappointing others. It means saying no. It means letting go. And yes, it hurts. But smart people know temporary discomfort is a small price to pay for lasting peace. They live by one simple truth. Not everyone deserves access to your spirit. Not everyone is safe for your soul. And when you truly understand that, you stop trying to fix the world and start saving yourself. Smart people respond. They don't react. There is a quiet difference between responding and reacting, and once you learn it, your life transforms. A reaction is fast, impulsive, and often driven by wounded emotion. A response is calm, intentional, and guided by wisdom. Smart people have mastered this difference, because life was easy, but because experience shaped them into keepers of their own peace. They've learned that every time they react, they hand their power away. They become puppets to the chaos others create. But when they pause, breathe, and respond with clarity, they hold on to their dignity. They hold on to their power. And more importantly, they hold on to their self-respect. There's strength in not firing back. There's grace in holding your tongue. Not every insult needs a reply. Not every argument deserves your presence. Smart people know that silence is sometimes the strongest sentence you can deliver. They don't let others dictate the rhythm of their emotions. They don't allow disrespect to turn them into someone they are not. Instead, they let the poison pass by without swallowing it. They let the chaos echo while they remain grounded in stillness. This doesn't mean they are weak. It means they are wise. Anyone can scream, anyone can retaliate, but only the truly awakened can look at provocation and choose peace instead. That's not avoidance. That's evolution. Their calm is not a performance, it's a reflection of inner alignment. They've learned that what others say or do is a reflection of them, not of you. And so they don't internalize the venom. They see it, they acknowledge it, and they let it go. Toxic people often bait you. They know how to press buttons, how to manipulate the energy in the room. But when you refuse to give them what they seek, when you don't rise to the bait, they lose control, and you reclaim yours. Smart people pause before they speak. They ask themselves, will this add to my peace or steal it? If it costs their peace, the answer is already clear. They choose the higher road, not because it's easy, but because their soul is no longer for sale. They learn to speak with intention, not to wound, but to express, not to destroy, but to protect. And sometimes they say nothing at all because not every storm deserves to be acknowledged. Some clouds are best left to pass, and when they are pushed, they don't explode, they expand. They expand their awareness, their breath, their perspective. They remind themselves that not everything is about them. Sometimes people are fighting battles you'll never understand. That's why they don't take things personally. Not every rude comment needs to become your truth. Not every betrayal needs to become your identity. Smart people let go now because they are unaffected, but because they choose freedom over bitterness. They know that life responds to energy. What you give is what grows. So they stop feeding toxicity with more toxicity. They feed their peace instead, their clarity, their purpose. And in doing so, they rise above. When faced with fire, they don't add more flames. They become water. When surrounded by noise, they don't shout louder, they become the silence. And that silence speaks volumes. They become unshakable, because life stopped shaking, but because they stopped reacting. They responded instead with grace, with patience, and with unwavering inner strength. That is not just intelligence. That is transformation. Smart people walk away with grace, not guilt. There's a silent revolution that happens the day you realize you don't have to stay where your spirit feels suffocated. Walking away is not a failure. It's a declaration. A declaration that your worth is no longer up for debate, that your peace is no longer a gift for those who don't value it. Smart people understand this. And when they walk away, they carry nothing but grace in their steps. They do not slam doors. They do not scream their pain to the sky. They simply turn the page when the chapter becomes too heavy to hold. And even as they walk, their steps are not of anger but of freedom, of choosing themselves after choosing others for far too long. It takes strength to stay silent when every part of you wants to explain. It takes wisdom to retreat without revenge. But smart people know not everyone deserves an explanation. Not every ending needs a speech. Sometimes peace comes when you simply leave. They've learned that not everyone will understand their journey. Some will call them selfish. Others will paint them as cold. But what those people never see is the years of silent endurance, the 1,000 chances given, the tears hidden behind closed doors. Walking away is not a sign that you no longer care. It's a sign that you finally care enough about yourself, that you're done shrinking, bending, and breaking just to make space for someone else's chaos. You finally choose wholeness over history. There is a kind of grace that only those who've suffered silently can carry. The kind that doesn't seek to prove, doesn't seek to punish, it just leaves. And that departure echoes louder than any argument could ever shout. Smart people understand the value of emotional energy. They know that staying in a toxic environment drains the soul. So they choose to rise, even if it means walking alone for a while, even if it means stepping into the unknown, because they trust anything is better than staying in a place where you're slowly dying inside. They forgive not for the other person, but for themselves. Because carrying bitterness is like drinking poison, hoping the other person suffers. Forgiveness allows them to walk away light, not heavy, clear, not confused, whole, not haunted. Sometimes, the hardest part is not leaving, but leaving quietly, without the need to prove someone wrong, without the craving for closure. Smart people learn that closure isn't something you get, it's something you create within yourself. They bless the past for what it taught. They bless the people who hurt them for the growth they triggered. And they bless themselves for finally having the courage to stop waiting for change and become the change. They've cried behind curtains, they've broken in silence. But when they walk away, they wear a calm smile, and not because they feel no pain, but because they finally feel free. Free from emotional manipulation. Free from cycles that only left scars. And sometimes the ones they walk away from will try to pull them back. With apologies, with promises, with guilt. But smart people recognize patterns. They no longer get hypnotized by words, they watch behavior. And when behavior remains the same, they keep walking. This journey isn't easy. Letting go of people you once loved can feel like tearing your own heart out. But smart people know loving yourself enough to leave is the first step toward healing. And healing is worth any temporary pain. They don't announce their exit. They don't ask for validation. They don't wait to be rescued. They rescue themselves in silence, in strength, in complete self-respect. That's not coldness, that's clarity. That's not pride, that's power. So when they walk away, they leave the weight behind. They take with them only lessons, only wisdom, only courage. And every step forward is a quiet anthem of self-love rising from the ashes of what they finally let go. Smart people set boundaries, not walls. There's a difference between shutting people out and honoring your emotional space. The world teaches us to be kind, but rarely does it teach us to be kind to ourselves. Smart people have learned, sometimes through years of pain, that boundaries are not barriers, they are bridges back to your sanity. They don't build walls from bitterness. They draw lines from clarity. They've learned that giving endlessly without receiving respect is not compassion, it's self-neglect. And they refuse to live in that cycle anymore. Boundaries are how they tell the world, this is what I allow. This is what I no longer accept. Not in anger, not in ego, but in self-love. They set these boundaries without guilt, without apology, because they've learned that pleasing others at the expense of their soul is not kindness. It's a slow form of self-destruction. And they choose life. They choose balance. They choose peace. For too long, they may have let others overstep, thinking if they just gave more, tolerated more, stayed silent longer, things would change. But they woke up. Not suddenly, but slowly, one ignored feeling at a time, until the silence became too loud to bear. And when they finally found their voice, it wasn't in shouting, it was in stillness. A simple no, a gentle I can't, a quiet not this time. That voice was not rude, it was revolutionary. Because for the first time, they were listening to themselves. Boundaries are not punishments. They are blueprints for healthy interaction. They teach others how to love you, how to respect you, and how to stay in your life without harming your spirit. Smart people know this, and so they don't feel guilty for drawing the line. They also understand that setting a boundary doesn't mean the other person will like it. Some will call them distant. Others will call them difficult. But smart people don't live for other people's comfort. They live for their own emotional survival. They aren't afraid to say, "This hurts me," or "I won't tolerate this." They don't wait to explode in frustration. They express themselves clearly, directly, and with respect. Because true strength is not in suppressing your truth, it's in expressing it with dignity. And yes, some relationships end because of boundaries, but smart people accept that. They know that anything that falls apart when you begin to love yourself was never meant to last. Real connections survive truth. They don't crumble under honesty. They've made peace with the fact that not everyone is meant to stay. Some people were only there because the door was too wide open. Once boundaries enter, the uncommitted exit. And in that loss, there is clarity, there is cleansing. They don't let guilt manipulate them anymore. They don't let others rewrite their narrative. They understand that being misunderstood is the price you pay for honoring your truth. And they pay it willingly, bravely, fully. They've traded chaos for calm, noise for stillness, obligation for authenticity. And that trade has cost them relationships, but it has returned them to themselves. That's a price they'd pay again and again. They don't need to explain their boundaries to everyone. They don't seek approval for choosing self-respect. Their boundary is the explanation. Their peace is the proof. Their growth is the only validation they need. And with every boundary they build, their energy shifts. They stop feeling drained. They stop feeling lost. They begin to breathe again, to smile again, to live not in fear of conflict, but in the freedom of emotional safety. So they continue to set boundaries, not out of arrogance, but out of healing. Because they've learned protecting your energy is not rude, it is righteous, it is necessary, it is love turned inward, and from that love, everything good begins. Smart people focus on their growth, not their grudges. There comes a point in life when holding on to pain becomes heavier than healing from it. When reliving every betrayal, every wound, every wrong word spoken against you becomes a burden too exhausting to bear. Smart people reach that point, and instead of clinging tighter, they release. Not because they forget, but because they're ready to grow beyond the grip of what broke them. Grudges feel powerful at first. They make us believe we're protecting ourselves, preserving our pride. But slowly they drain the life from us. Every time you carry someone else's wrongdoings in your heart, you make space for their energy to rule over yours. Smart people see this clearly, and they choose growth. Growth doesn't mean what happened was okay. It doesn't mean you condone the hurt. It means you refuse to let it define you anymore. You decide that your future deserves more energy than your past. You shift your gaze from the scars to the strength it took to survive them. They understand that dwelling in anger is like being chained to the past. And you cannot walk into your destiny with your ankles tied to yesterday. So they don't keep score. They don't revisit every offense. They break the cycle by building something better themselves. Letting go of grudges doesn't happen in a moment, it's a journey, a daily decision. And some days, the pain resurfaces. But smart people meet that pain not with vengeance, but with purpose. They ask, how can this make me wiser, kinder, more whole? They transmute pain into power. Every heartbreak becomes a lesson. Every betrayal becomes a redirection. Every rejection becomes refinement. Because they know growth is the only revenge that truly liberates you. They no longer need to prove anything to anyone. Their success speaks for them. Their peace speaks louder. Their joy, their glow, their relentless pursuit of a better self becomes the answer to every person who once tried to break them. They know that resentment is a thief. It robs you of joy, of creativity, of presence. And so they choose to forgive and not to free the other person, but to free themselves. Forgiveness becomes the soil where their growth takes root. Smart people are not perfect. They still feel anger. They still feel the sting of injustice, but they don't build homes in that pain. They visit it, acknowledge it, and then return to where healing lives. They know that where your focus goes, your future grows. They pour their energy into learning, into building, into transforming. They don't waste it chasing revenge or rehashing the past. They invest in books and experiences and conversations that uplift. They fill their life with things that water their potential. Their growth becomes a silent revolution. They don't talk about what they're building, they become it. Every day they evolve. And that evolution makes every wound worthwhile. It gives meaning to the mess. It turns tears into testimony. They surround themselves with people who challenge them, not people who chain them. They walk away from circles where grudges are currency. They choose environments where growth is celebrated, not competition or comparison. Smart people refuse to let their story end in bitterness. They write new chapters, brighter ones. With purpose as their pen and healing as their ink, they reclaim their narrative not through retaliation, but through reinvention. And when others look at them and ask, "How did you survive all that pain?" they smile, not out of pride, but out of quiet victory. Because they know the greatest power is not in getting even, but in growing so far beyond what hurt you that it can no longer reach you. So they rise with peace in their hearts and purpose in their steps, not held back by grudges, but propelled forward by growth. And every step they take becomes a lesson to the world. You don't have to fight to be free, you just have to grow. In the end, there comes a time in every soul's journey when pain becomes the greatest teacher. And in that moment, we are given a choice to become bitter or to become better. Smart people choose the latter not because the pain didn't touch them, but because they refuse to let it define them. They understand that toxicity is not just found in people, but in patterns, in responses, in the stories we tell ourselves about what we deserve. And once they recognize it, they don't just escape from others, they liberate themselves from within. Their strength doesn't come from shouting back, but from staying silent when silence is strength. Their power isn't in controlling others, it's in mastering their own emotions, their own space, their own energy. They do not allow toxic people to turn them cruel. They do not allow betrayal to turn them bitter. Instead, they let the fire refine them, not consume them. And they walk through that fire with grace in their heart and wisdom in their eyes. Each time they are wronged, they don't build walls, they build boundaries. Each time they are disrespected, they don't react, they rise. And each time they are broken, they don't shatter, they reshape. They do not entertain drama. They do not chase apologies. They do not beg for understanding. They simply observe, learn, and move forward with quiet confidence that they deserve peace more than they desire closure. Smart people know that not everyone deserves access to their vulnerability. They choose carefully who they give their energy to, because they've learned that not everyone who smiles is sincere, and not everyone who stays is safe. They walk away not with hatred, but with healing. Not to punish, but to protect. Not because they've given up, but because they've grown beyond what no longer serves their spirit. They speak less and listen more. They argue less and observe more. They prove less and live more. Because they've reached a place where their peace matters more than proving a point. Forgiveness, for them, is not about erasing what was done, it's about erasing its power over their joy. They let go of grudges, not because it's easy, but because their destiny is too precious to be delayed by pain. In a world full of noise, they choose stillness. In a world full of conflict, they choose calm. And in a world full of hurt, they choose to heal. Their journey is not perfect. Their scars are real. But they wear them not with shame, but with pride. For every scar is a story of strength, a symbol that they survived what was meant to destroy them and they did it with dignity. So when they walk into a room, they carry an energy that says, "I've been through the storm, but I did not become it." And that is the kind of quiet power that no toxic person can ever steal. Because in the end, smart people don't treat toxic people with revenge. They treat them with distance, with detachment, with the unshakable resolve that they will never again dim their light to make others comfortable in darkness. And that is not just wisdom, that is freedom, that is healing, that is evolution.